What's up, folks? Nigeria and Miranda. We are back this week to talk about Impact on AXS TV. Our review for tonight's episode. It is August 11th. Hopefully by now you've already seen the episode, but if not, if you just stopping through the review to show some love, then we always appreciate that. But before we get started, hello, Miranda. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Yes, we got a couple of interesting things to talk about. I always like to say, if you've just the first time I ever checked out our review, we really don't break down the entire show. We just talk about the really notable things. And there definitely was a lot of little things that I think is probably going to get overlooked, because even for me, I kind of had to go back and say, like, wait, what did they say? Or what did they announce? So we're kind of going to put some emphasis and highlights on that. But first, yes, I think we should definitely talk about starting off beyond tonight's show. And that's in 1 week now, Emergence, which is a 2-week special for Impact. And we've got some more matches and stipulations announced for both the night 1 and night 2. But let's go all the way to night 2 in the Knockouts Championship rematch between Deonna Purrazzo and Jordynne Grace, which now they're getting ready to make some history here. And I know you were excited to talk about this, so...
Yeah, so Deonna Purrazzo did a promo talking about Jordynne Grace now acting very champion-like and her really taking a turn being more aggressive and vicious now that she's lost the Knockouts Championship. And with that, Deonna decided to challenge Jordynne to a Iron Man match, 30-minute Iron Man match for Emergence. And I did a loud, slow clap by myself in my house as soon as those words left her mouth, like literally slow clapping that announcement, because I think it's a great stipulation to add to this match. They already have such good chemistry, and rematches can be challenging after the barn burner they had in their first match. So what's another way to get it a step above? Make it an Iron. But yes, a 30-minute Iron Man on a woman match set for the second night of Emergence. I really loved this, and I absolutely, literally and figuratively applaud them for this decision.
Yep, I didn't look at it instantly with that satisfaction. I instantly think some of my favorite matches in all of wrestling have come from Iron Man matches. Mm-hmm. So there's always like, okay, here's a chance for instant classic. But yes, after Slammiversary, you giving them more time to do this. Mm-hmm. I just suspect just another well done match between the two of them. I am hoping to see Jordynne win this one in true fashion live, as she should have the first time. Nonetheless, here we go again. I'm Team Jordynne with this, but nonetheless, it's going to be a good match, and I'm automatically investing into that. So I thought that was a really good stipulation, as you said, to go with that. I think everybody else, as far as the fans and other people, are really excited to see what the two of them ladies can put together again with more given time. Hell, after this 30-minute, let's go ahead and do the hour next.
Yep, let's just keep on rolling. Let's just fight forever in every stipulation match that you can think of.
Yeah. And then also for Emergence now, looks like, we just talked to, if you haven't had a chance, definitely check out our interview with the X Division champion, Chris Bay. And looks like now we're going to get a triple threat match between him, TJP, and Rohit Raju. Now, I like this because TJP and Chris Bay is still the money-making match that they want to have. Adding another person, Rohit Raju, one of the hardest workers in Impact, it keeps away from that one-on-one dynamic, but it still provides three really good qualified people to put on a good match. So I'm excited for that as well. Chris Bay has been very adamant about wanting to face Chris against TJP, and he got the tag match. Now he's getting the triple threat. So slowly but surely they're getting to the one-on-one. And obviously I don't expect the title to change there, but I still expect for it to be a good, fun match.
Yeah, it will be. And you're right with, maybe delaying the one-on-one match between Chris Bay and TJP. And you have Rohit Raju as this wild card factor. He presented himself this week as an ally to Chris Bay, that he was going to be, even in this match, there to watch out for him. But you never know when you're that close to the gold, your intentions can come very clear. And you're looking out for number one always. So as much as people are going to be glued to the television to see Chris Bay and TJP, don't count Rohit Raju out. And I think he's going to play an interesting role in this triple threat match.
Yep. And now obviously we got the Good Brothers versus Madman Fulton and Ace Austin. Sooner or later that was going to happen. Here we go. So Emergence is loading up for night one. And, I expect some really interesting things to come out of that. Who else has been announced for that night or for night one? I'm trying to think. I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, how can we forget? The North versus the Motor City Machine Guns. I mean, yeah. Here's the thing. These are all rematches or matches that we kind of knew were coming at some point, and the fact that we're getting them now is just satisfying. And by either demonstration of the first match or just by pedigree, we know that night one is going to be amazing. And I hope what happens with this doesn't happen with Rebellion, where night one was so good that night two had nothing left for it. And that's what it's looking right now, because night one is looking really stacked.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's why I think that, having the women's Iron Man match on night two is going to be a big deal. And I love the way that they're presenting it, because you do need to dedicate time for that. And the fact that they are stacking up the card in the way that they're at, does make night one feel like it's going to be the night to beat. But we still don't know what's going to be happening with the World Championship title scene. We don't know. I think it was also, no, that's for next week. We still don't know, other matches that are going to be set up. But, you're right about that, though. Night one is coming up to be a really stacked card, and it's going to be must watch.
No, you're right. You were about to say it. We don't know what's going to happen with Moose in the TNA heavyweight champ. Well, yeah, that's been announced too, because him versus Trey, as he decided to select his opponent. So yeah, that's
what I was thinking. That was going to be for another night too. And then also announced we have Taya versus Kylie Rae, which even though it's going to be within WRESTLE House, which I have no idea how that's going to work, again, like that's already a lot for night one. And so who knows what night two is going to look like outside of, of the women's knockouts title match.
Yes. August 18th, night one, it is going down. Yes. You got Trey Miguel versus Moose for the TNA heavyweight championship. Again, we'll see what happens with that match. I don't expect nothing shifty to happen. Then you got the X Division Championship and the triple threat. Again, I don't expect too much to happen from that. The Good Brother versus Ace Austin and Madman Fulton, which should just be a fun match in his own. Motor City Machine Guns versus the North. I smell classic written all over this one.
I mean, I love the way that they've compared the legacy of the Motor City Machine Guns and the history and the prestige they've brought to TNA/Impact, to, what the North has been able to do with their year-long title reign. In this case, we don't have to see them a lot in the ring. A lot of the storytelling has been going on through vignettes and promos, and both teams have shown really well, because, when they're in the ring, they're going to do outstanding. So let's, why put all of that up front? Tease us, get us really interested in it by really comparing these two teams.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so let's kind of talk about tonight's show, and I'm going to the very end of the show with this one here, because we had the open challenge with Eddie Edwards, who was the fighting champion, who was starting to bring back the prestige to the Impact World Championship as because it was sitting on the shelf for so long. So now he's a fighting champion with an open challenge each and every week. And this week he asked for Eric Young. Did he ask for Eric Young? He asked for Eric Young.
Well, he did. Yes, he asked for Eric Young based off. What happened last week?
Yeah,
and earlier that night.
Yeah. So him going after the crazy man Eric Young, but he got a surprise, and so did we. Not so much of a surprise because we knew this person was eventually coming, but I am surprised here because you're going to have a person debut and lose. I don't know. But we're talking about Brian Myers, formerly known as Kurt Hawkins of WWE, makes his Impact debut. I think, first of all, Josh Matthews going down his accolades as far as his podcasting, his best friend, and I can't even think of his name right. Matt Cardona, his WWE accolades and so on. So it was good to hear him really get built up in a way that, hey, just in case you don't know who this guy is, he's done some things, you know? And then you put him against the champion. I thought it was a good match, but like, I guess I want to see this person get a little bit of shine or a little bit of, you know, something to kind of build up off of instead of coming in with a loss. So I don't know. Was I totally feeling that?
I don't think the loss hurt him as much. One, because to be honest, and I mean this in a very respectful way, you know, yes, they went over his accolades, but how much do you consider them to be accolades, you know? And again, this is the longest match I think I've ever seen him in. So the fact that he produced such a good quality match, again, gets us thinking, wow, this guy's actually a wrestler. And maybe we forgot about that because he's been used more as a prop for so many years.
That's
so
true.
now to really establish him as a wrestler, that he can have a great match with Eddie Edwards, I don't think the loss hurt him. The fact that he was even brought in to have a championship match like that on his first night, I think does show that Impact has the confidence in him. Do I think this is the top of the peak for him for now? Absolutely, though. I feel like he's going to get shifted back into the middle of the card, and that's where he's going to get his wins. And I think that's going to be okay for his status because, again, I mean, we do know him as a former WWE star. We do know him, you know, through his podcasting and some crossover appeal, but he's not one of the bigger signees. It wasn't as big as getting, you know, the Good Brothers or EC3, just because he doesn't have that of a history with Impact and just maybe not as well known in the world of professional wrestling. So I think if he did have that and he lost, it probably would be a bigger deal, but he's kind of, you know, this is probably the best debut he was going to get.
I will argue it just a little bit because of the idea of like, yeah, he may not be known, but I think he is sort of I think he's a big deal for them because of his relationships with the other people in the locker room, him having a wrestling school, and because he has not been used so much, that gives him a lot of wear and tear left on that body. And I think that's the type of people when you think about signing that you want. And because us knowing him as a character or a gimmick, whatever it may be, the wrestling does come as a surprise. And I think that's just all the more investment that we could put on him. But like, I would love to him have gotten, you know, a good quality match to win. And maybe that's just a little bit biased there, but I was thoroughly surprised on that, on it being handled in that way. But at the same time too, what Eddie Edwards is doing, I love the storytelling behind that. And I just see the pros and cons with some of this stuff. So
no, good point. You're right. I think a losing effort against Eddie Edwards was such a great match. Hey, I think that's a awesome debut. And again, too, this is also showing that prestige of the World Championship. I really do like this open challenge line. You never know who's going to come in, and I do now take Brian Myers as a credible threat, even though he had a losing effort. I do absolutely see having him have great matches through his time at Impact, and I'm actually excited to see what he does next.
Yeah. So, okay, what else we had going on this night? Oh, going to the beginning of the show, we had Eric Young, which I just mentioned, against Willie Mack. Here's one thing I really liked about this: true, authentic aggression. Willie Mack. Always on joke time. Surely
Willie Mack did not care.
Wasted no time. I feel like he cut the most legit promo ever. And legit because I'm not going to say one of the best promos, but legit because it wasn't a wrestling promo to me. That's something I hear myself saying on some regular day-to-day on the street. You know, you messed up my boy. I'm coming for you. Yep. You got a receipt coming type of thing. So I felt that. So when he said that, I was just like, okay, well, if that's how it is, then that's how it is. And I like that they got to the nitty gritty, and it was a good, solid, quality match for the style of wrestling that had to be done there. And Eric Young, what can you say? I've never met the guy. I've never talked to the guy. I've known people that know him, and I know that everyone talks about he's one of the hardest working people in the locker room. He's one of the nicest people that anybody's won. They say that's absolutely somebody you want to work with on any given day and basis. So considering that, and considering you got these two really nice people put on such a high caliber aggression match in there, it's like, yo, this is wrestling right here. This is the epitome of wrestling. So I was just automatically like, if the tempo keeps up for the rest of the night, this is going to be a solid night. But nonetheless, they set the tone. That's for sure.
They did. I thought this was a great way to start the show. I love how Willie Mack had that kind of energy throughout the entire match, from even starting up, beating him outside of the ring in the locker room area, all the way through. He kept that 100%. And I loved that intensity. And Eric Young, I mean, he is crazy right now. This is the result of what wrestling has done to him coming back to Impact. And I really enjoyed this story with him. He is definitely must watch every week. I want to see what Eric Young is going to do next, because you really never know, what he's going to do and who he's going to do it to. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, I'll let you go with the next match. Well, what do you want to talk about, or the next thing that we should highlight from the night?
Well, by the smile on my face, we got to talk a bit about WRESTLE HOUSE, because that every week it continues to be such a crazy bit. So we did talk about, I mentioned they did set up Taya versus Kylie Rae, Taya and Kylie Rae for next week's at Emergence. And this stemmed from, Kylie getting a bit on Taya's nerves. This week, as far as the fun activity everyone in the house did, was to watch Taya's greatest hits. And right away, Kylie was, raising her hand like, oh, do we have to? Is this right? And they've been teasing it. They were the last two competitors in the ring at Slammiversary in the gauntlet match. You see, some tension now that Kylie is the number one contender. And, after the match between, I believe it was Susie. No, was it Susie and
Susie
Alisha?
Yep.
Ty was pretty much saying, all right, everyone, let's get back to watching me. And Kylie wasn't having it. And Susie brought up the fact that, Kylie's, beaten Taya. So I love how they're setting up this dynamic. It's something different and something fun. You also had the two members of Team XXXL go up against each other, because Rosemary has now had is able to, I guess, control people's emotions. It kind of like was this magical dust that she blew onto Larry to make him fall in love with her, to get Johnny Bravo jealous. Look, this is wrestling. I mean, we talked about good wrestling, and then this is just some crazy ass storytelling. But it continues to be a highlight of just fun, interesting variety throughout the show. The matches they put in between, it is wrestling, but it's, I would say, a very loose definition of wrestling. But I like how, things keep getting shaken up every week.
I love reading the comments on our reviews about the back and forth about people enjoyment or displeasure of WRESTLE HOUSE. And this is 2020, folks. This is wrestling.
Yeah, this is entertainment. This is television. This is wrestling. These are all the components that come into it. And we're also in a time where literally people are stuck at home. So why not that be a reflection in wrestling now?
Yeah.
It's silly, but it brings a smile to my face, and it's a way to keep stories going in ways that are a little non-traditional, but that we haven't seen before. And hey, I can appreciate that.
Yep, I'm with you on that one. I think the next thing we should talk about quickly is just the Kimber Lee and Jordynne Grace match. Again, it's been officially announced now this time on commentary. Kimber Lee is officially signed. So we're seeing more Kimber Lee in a more purposeful way. And, this obviously built off of last week, but Jordynne Grace versus Kimber Lee is a match that I'm excited to see on any given day of the week. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this is just a match because there's other things progressing beyond this, But nonetheless, for this match, which we can almost just consider a filler at this point, was still very solid, and we're still seeing more and more out of Kimber Lee. And I think it won't be long before we're not considering her the biggest kept secret, or the underdog, or whatever it may be, the person that's being overlooked, however you want to classify it. We will eventually see her and talk about her in a main event fashion. And I think this is just the glimpse of the potential, because for me, if I'm a booker or running promotion, we know there's money to be made there, as I always like to say. Let's just save it just for a little bit. But in case you're wondering why there's so much emphasis on this person, just take a little glimpse of this right here. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm feeling with Kimber Lee, and I love how this match was handled.
Yeah, I mean, in the short amount of time since the Slammiversary pay-per-view, and seeing her have a bigger presence in the Knockouts division, I was one of those people that was a little underwhelmed by her, and now I'm eating my words, because the past 2 weeks that she's had her one-on-one matches, they have been fantastic, and the other matches she's had too prior to that. But now I just feel like she's taking it to another level. She's very methodical in her wrestling. She understands her opponents and tries her best to combat them. And she is, you don't know where she is on the fence sometimes. And I think that's actually really entertaining. She could be, a hero or a villain. And I think that plays very well, even in, her attire and, the way that she just presents herself as a wrestler. I think she is very much a chameleon, and she will be someone on the Knockouts roster that we're going to continuously keep an eye out for. And really at the end of the day, she had a competitive match. This was not a squash match by any means. And so anytime that she can get in the ring with anybody and make it that good, she will be a threat. Yep,
absolutely. All right, back to you now again. We got a couple of more other things. I feel like we covered every week. There's a couple of more things we probably could talk about, but
there's a couple. I mean, we did have the street fights or no DQ tag match between Kiera, Hogan, and Tasha Steelz versus Havok and Nevaeh. Tasha Steelz and Kiera Hogan won, which I was a little surprised, because you think that this match is a little bit more in Havok and Nevaeh's realm, but it did lead to Havok being put through a table, and I believe Tasha getting the pin. Kiera getting the pin. But still, I mean, it does feel like there's a little finality between these four women. We've seen this brewing for several months. I do, again, appreciate doing something different in matches with the Knockouts division. They've had tension built up literally for months. Did it kind of feel a little bit of a flat ending? A little bit. I think, based off of all the other confrontations and matches that they've had, surprisingly, this one felt a little flat. So, my hope is that they do move on to something different for all of these women. What that looks like, I'm not sure. But, I do appreciate that them, Impact doing something different with women's matches, and the fact that this was a pretty good street fight. The tongs, I don't understand. They had Tasha and Kiera had these tongs that they had in the ring for the beginning of the match. Kind of humorous. I don't know how they're supposed to hurt anybody, but that's their weapon of choice.
Yeah, very much the same sentiments on this one. And I think the only way that makes this all make sense, and I really am never a person to make these type of statements, but yeah, I think at some point you have to start really going down the trajectory of instating the titles to make this storyline make sense. And however it's executed, I think, that needs to be the end all of it, is the chase for that. Really quickly, while I'm thinking about something real quick, Scott D'Amore said something on Twitter the other day that I thought was super interesting. And that's the idea of his respect and gratitude to FTR, and saying that, him and Impact supports the idea of having them face the North. However they can get it done, make it happen. As he tweeted it and added Jericho. I know this ain't really, we're talking about the show for tonight, but I would be remiss if I didn't say it at all, that this is must happen somehow. Yeah. And to the very much point, is that when I think all of us, at least for me, I put FTR or the Revival on a high pedestal in tag team wrestling because their IQ is unlike no other I've seen in many, many years. But when it comes down to that, the North, I feel like, has a very lot of the same type of mentality in their execution, and just a tad bit different in styles. But considering that dream match to be lobbied by Scott D'Amore, to say that, I don't know how, where, or when, but if this is ever to come to fruition here, just know I'm gonna lose all my marbles for it. I just had to make sure I brought that.
I know. No, I think it's a good point. And it actually kind of ties in a little bit. And I don't know how much this was intentional or not, but there is a pretty big relationship between Impact and AEW, whether we know it or not, because they've had a lot of wrestlers wrestle there before. And this week's match of the week was Eddie Edwards versus Cody Rhodes. So there is that acknowledgement, and even mentioning people like Matt Cardona, who's now, doing some appearances at AEW. I mean, they've had a history between a lot of people who are currently working for AEW and Impact Wrestling. And, I think it doesn't hurt to throw that out there in the universe, because if there is another company out there that is a big advocate of great tag team wrestling other than Impact, it is AEW. And so why not throw those vibes out there? Why not put that out there as whether it's an open invitation or a potential business dealing or a one night only, whatever it looks like, I hope that there's some lines of communication open.
Yes, I hope that the tweet was just the opening of the door and it gets to going. So I'm excited by a possibility. If you all listening have not heard that news, it's officially on Scott D'Amore's Twitter. I did not make that up. I think we're gonna wrap up really quick. I will say before we leave, that how could I not talk about Locker Room Talk, which returned this week, and because obviously, Miranda really wants to talk about Katie Forbes and RVD makeout session in the locker room. And that's all that matters.
Don't make me talk about it. I had to watch it. Don't make me talk about it. It's reliving all of that. Even Madison Rayne couldn't take it. Madison Rayne just got up and left and never returned. Yeah, she was not for it. Neither was I. It's fun and entertaining, but it is. I still am not sure how I feel about RVD and Sami Callihan. I'm still not completely sold on this rivalry, this feud. I get why it's happened as far as how it started, but it's something that, to me, it just feels so out of place for Sami Callihan. He's had very aggressive and intentional feuds over the past year. And even the one with Ken Shamrock, it was a little iffy. Eventually, I got sold on it, but barely. This one, to me, just seems so out of left field and doesn't quite make any sense to me. I tell you what, if this somehow rejuvenates RVD to the RVD of the past, then let's do it. It all meant for something. But as of right now, not so sold on it. I did like how both Katie Forbes and RVD were stomping on Sami Callihan, like Katie Forbes in her high heels, like just stomping. Like, they're ridiculous. I have to admit, they're ridiculous. They make me laugh. But beyond that, I watched it as professionals that we are reviewing this. We watched it, but I don't want to talk about it anymore. Well, folks, definitely let me know what match you're most excited for Emergence, and what other matches you think they're going to come up with, and your excitement. What other dream matches do you all have that potentially could happen here? Since all things could be considered possible at this point. It's 2020. Anything is possible. Anything. If we learned anything from this year, is that to not count anything out. That's right. Well, that's all I have, Miranda. Anything else you want to add really quick before we roll out? No, just thank you all for watching us every week. And yeah, don't forget, we have an awesome interview with Chris Bay available. It was a lot of fun. And you can even hear, his response to possibly facing TJP, his quick rise on the Impact roster, and a little bit of his freestyle.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, that'll do it for us for the week. And we'll be back next Tuesday for another review of Impact on AXS TV. Thank you for listening. See you then.